headed down there, but I would never sell around there, and then I would never have my customers meet me around there from then on. I would have them meet me down at the store or at the gas station, anywhere but around there.
Now, when you would sell crack or powder, um, how would it work? When would you go out there during the day?
I mean, I would be out there all day, but my main time of selling drugs was like after 4 o'clock, between 4 and 12 o'clock, because that's when the cops really don't be around like that. They don't be a lot of activity don't be happening, and then at night I like to sell my drugs at night
Why is that?
because it don't be a lot of police activity, and then it don't be a lot of people outside, kids and all that. So
So what would you do when you did go out there, let's just say on a given day? How would you do it? What would you do with your drugs?
I come outside, and then if I'm on Perkins Street, depending which way I come, I would drop my drugs, just drop them on the ground anywhere.
I want to bring up and see if you can show the jury what you're talking about. Can you please bring up Government Exhibit 53? Do you recognize what's in that photo?
Yes,
What is that?
the abandoned house, Kim house, my Grand Marquis. That's the cutoff.
Which is your Grand Marquis?
The green car.
The green car in the center there?
Yes.
And the abandoned house, what is?
That's the abandoned. It's
Is it
just an
graffiti
abandoned
on it?
house. Yes.
Okay. Now, so what are we looking at? Are we,
The cutoff.
and so can you use that, actually I should stay after you. Can you use that photograph to describe what you mean about what you would do?
I would just I would come out and I would just drop my drugs anywhere on the street, like just literally anywhere, because the cops, they got places that they look specifically, but if you drop the drugs anywhere, they're not gonna pay it no attention. So I would never like hide it under a gate or in some leaves or in a tree or nothing like that. I would just drop it, just flat out drop it on the ground.
Well, would it be obvious that it was drugs, or would it be concealed?
Nah, it'd be in a black store bag. Like it'll look like trash basically.
And why would you drop it as opposed to keeping it on?
Cause I don't want to get caught with no drugs on me, and the cops, they liable to come around and stop and frisk you at any time.
Did that happen? That they would come around and frisk you?
Yeah,
How often?
a lot.
If you saw would you know that the cops were coming?
Now if they come down Nolan Street, we would know if I'm on Perkins Street or if I'm on Swartz Street and they come in on Swartz. But if I'm in the middle of the block, like say where the house next door to the abandoned house, if I'm there, we wouldn't know until they already there. And they when they come, they swoop. Like it ain't just one car come in. It's a lot of them. They come from all the different ways, so you can't really go nowhere. They'll jump out, grab you, search you, whatever you got on you, make sure you're all right, run your name for warrants and all that.
So going back to when you would know when they would come certain routes, how would you know?
Cause we'll see them. I mean, if I'm at this abandoned house, I could see straight up the street. You can see the cars turning in. But if they come in off of Swartz Street, I can't see them. And if I'm on Swartz Street and they come in, I can see them. But if they come down Nolan Street, I can't see them. If nobody's out there to say that the cops is coming, then we can't see them. We just blindsided.
What if someone was out there? What would they do?
They say police.
So that you would know, make sure to see them.
Yeah.
Okay. And so as a result, did you ever? But you didn't have your drugs on you.
Nah.
Did other people at the cutoff selling? Did you see them with drugs on their body, or what would they do with their?
Nah, not in the physical. A lot of people use the abandoned house or behind the houses. It's an alleyway back there. A lot of people use that back there. But nobody really kept no drugs. If it wasn't weed, like a dime bag of weed or something like that, nobody really kept nothing on them.
For what reason?
For fear of getting arrested.
So did you ever? You said that you kept your bag in sort of on the ground, looking
Yeah.
like trash.
Yeah.
Did you ever lose any of your drugs to the police?
I'm pretty sure I have, but not that I can remember.
Did you ever know of anybody else that said that they lost their drugs to police?
Yeah.
Who do you remember?
Almost everybody. Naj, Eddie, Butch, Bird. That's basically it that really say it, because they all kept their drugs in that house. And that's the first place that the cops gonna go when they come, straight in that house.
During all this time that you were out there so is it fair to say that you were out on the cutoff from about early 2006 until when?
September of 2006. September, I got arrested on September the 14th. I made bail, and I got arrested again on September the 22nd
Is that in 2006?
of 2006.
Okay, let's go through that just briefly. So turning to the first time. Sorry, you said September 14th?
Yes.
What were you doing that day?
I was sitting on the cutoff in a car with my cousin Jamal, and, we was out there hustling,
And by hustling, you mean what?
selling drugs. But we was just in the car smoking weed, and we had fell asleep. And the cops came from everywhere, and they pulled us out the car. They found drugs, and they took us to the station.
Okay. What did they find did they find drugs associated with you?
Yes.
Where did they find those drugs?
I had them in my butt crack.
How much drugs did you have?
A few bags, 25, 23 bags,
Of what?
cocaine.
And did you try to hide them?
Yeah, I tried to hide them.
Okay, but they found them.
Yeah.
And then you said that Jamal your cousin was also arrested. Did
Yes.
they find drugs that they associated with him?
Yes.
What did they find?
I'm just going to object to the associated with him. How would he know?
Well, do you have personal knowledge? Were you there?
Yes, I was there. We were arrested at the same time.
What-
The testimony was that he was in a car. My client was in a car. Drugs were found inside the house. So how could he have been there?
Only testify, once you do it one step.
Sure, I can
You
do
can
it
only
a different
testify, Mr. Harris, to what you personally saw with your own eyes, okay?
Okay.
If you're asked a question and you didn't see it, then say you didn't see it, you can't answer,
Okay.
okay? Go ahead.
We'll go through it a different way. So you said you were out there selling with Jamal.
Right.
And where did you have the drugs that you were selling?
I had them in my I had boxer briefs, so I had them tucked in a hole inside the boxer briefs.
So you had them on you,
Right.
and you were in a car
Right.
outside. Where were you? What were you outside of?
Outside of 1310 Perkins Street.
Okay, which isn't in this picture, but it is in. I think you identified it before. Let's just make sure. 295. Is that the house you identified before?
Yes.
On the right there.
Yes.
Okay, so you're in a car. What kind of car do you remember?
A Buick Regal.
So you're sitting out there outside that house.
Right.
You have drugs there. Do you know if Jamal had any drugs nearby?
No.
Okay, earlier that day,
Yes.
while you were before you fell asleep,
Right.
were you witness to any conversations between Jamal and anybody else about drugs?
Yes.
What
We
happened?
we were sitting in the car, and it was getting late, and Clyde asked Mal, "Can you watch your stuff for him?" And Mal said, "Yeah, I got you."
Now, what did that mean? Watch your stuff. Watch
So
your stuff.
keep an eye out. Basically make sure nothing happens to it.
Well, what was it?
Drugs, cocaine.
So Clyde, meaning Clyde Hall,
Yes.
asked your cousin in front of you to watch his drugs for him, meaning
Yes.
cocaine.
While we were sitting in the car. Yes.
Okay, and did you have a chance to observe what was done with the drugs?
No.
Did anybody tell you where the drugs were?
Once we got to the police station, Mal said they was in the vent.
Those were Clyde's drugs that Mal was watching for him?
Your Honor, object to that.
Well, that's what he's...
Overruled.
I'm sorry. Mal told you that the drugs that he was watching for Clyde were in a vent.
No, he just told me the stuff they found in the vent was Clyde's.
Okay. But you had seen him earlier say that he was...
He was gonna watch it. Yeah.
Okay. So you said a vent. Can you please point out where you mean by that?
This up in right-hand corner.
Okay, I'm gonna point it out to the jury, okay? This, can you see me? Right here, this bed up here?
Yes.
So he said that they found those drugs. Those
Yes.
slides. And did he say what he was gonna do about that?
Nah, he just said they was his. He admitted to have them being his.
Okay, so he didn't tell the police that they were Clyde's.
Nah, he said they was whatever they found. He said it was his.
Now after that, so then you're both arrested, and then after that you said you made bail,
Yes.
and something happened then a week later?
Yes. I went out on Friday or Saturday, and the cops came back and ran back in my aunt house, and they found me asleep on the floor, and I had like $100 worth of drugs in my pocket,
What kind of drugs?
crack.
So that was a week later, were you arrested for that?
Yes.
And did you end up spending any time in jail for that?
Yes.
Now going back, were those the first times that you were arrested? Those 2 times? In your life?
No.
Had you been arrested before?
No, I've been arrested before.
Okay. Had you been convicted of any other crimes before those 2 crimes?
No.
You know, you didn't
No.
have any, do you not spend any time in jail or receive probation for any other crimes before that?
When I was a juvenile, I did.
No, I don't want to talk about when you were a juvenile, I'm sorry.
Nah, as an adult, no.
When you were picked up by police, were you always honest with them?
No.
Okay, what would you do?
I would give them aliases, fake names,
Why would you do that?
for fear that I had warrants.
So you didn't want them to know who you really were,
Right.
so that they wouldn't arrest you?
Right.
Now, you said that the police stopped you all very frequently, it sounds like.
Right.
Did you ever receive any citations or anything when you were stopped by the police?
Twice. When I got arrested with Jayville, me and Jayville got pulled over in the car.
Where were you?
We was on the 1300 block of Perkins Street. We was coming from the bar. Jayville ran the stop sign. The cops was coming down Colhane. They got behind us. We didn't stop till we got on Perkins Street. I had 3 bags of cocaine in my pocket. And another time, I went to a club with Mo, and when we came back, we went to the gas station. And at the gas station, it just so happened that everybody from our street just met up at that gas station at that one point in time. Like everybody was going to one place at the same time. So
So
the
who
cops
was there?
came in.
Who was there before we get to the cops? Who was there?
Me, Mo, Craig, Brandon, Clyde, Jayville. I said Craig already? I think that's it.
Okay, so, and how were you? Were you all in the same car, or what
Nah,
was it?
me and Mo was in his car. Brandon and Clyde was in Clyde's car. Craig, Jayville, and Craig and Jayville was in Craig's mom's car.
And you all met there, and what happened with you started to say with the police?
We just, Mo went to get Dutchess. Somebody went to get gas. Other people went to get drinks. And when the cops came, they kind of cornered us all in, all the cars. The state troopers, they cornered us all in. They ran everybody's name. I gave them an alias, so they took me in to do my fingerprints.
Did they take anybody else in?
Mo had like 2 jars of weed. Craig had a warrant for child support, and I don't know what they locked Jayville up for.
But those were who was locked up, and
That was us.
you
for it,
mentioned Clyde and Brandon. Were they?
Brandon stepped off. I don't know where Clyde went to, but Brandon, they left. They got.
They got out of it.
They got out of it.
Now you mentioned that you were that police would come and go into the abandoned houses and things like that. Were you ever out there when the police recovered things?
No, like outside right there.
Were you ever on the cutoff? Yeah, when the police
Nah,
collected
man,
items.
whenever they came around, I left. I ain't, because if they out there and they see you, it don't matter where they see you at, they gonna grab you. Like I could have been way up the street somewhere and they could be down there, but it just so happened to be a late cop coming. He know everybody that's from this street, so he would have grabbed me anyway.
So you got out of there.
Yeah.
And did other people get out of there?
Yeah, whenever the cops came around, everybody left.
During the time that you were selling on the cutoff, were you using any drugs?
Yes.
What were you using?
Weed, ecstasy, Xanaxes, drinking liquor
Okay, let's go. How often were you using weed?
every day, all day,
How often were you using ecstasy?
every day, sometimes twice.
And is it the entire period of time that you were doing that?
Yeah.
What about Xanax?
I would take them like weekends, Saturday, Friday. That's it.
And what about like the drinking?
Almost every day.
Now, would it be every day, meaning first thing in the morning?
Nah, I ain't drink first thing in the morning. I would wait till it was like at least 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Like the sun go down or whatever, the day's starting to mellow out, then I would drink.
When you were out there, did you carry a firearm?
No.
Did you know of anybody else to carry a firearm?
Carry on a person? No.
Did you know people to possess firearms? Well, you said carry on your person. Was there an alternative to that?
I mean, people had guns around, but they ain't have them like physically on them.
Why is that?
You know, you wouldn't carry a gun on you. The police activity, it was too high. It was a risk. You didn't want that.
So who did if you knew, who did you know had guns nearby?
Bird, Eddie, Naj. I knew at one time Brent had a gun. That was on New Year's Eve. That was the only time I seen him with a gun.
What did you see him do?
It was New Year's Eve, and it was 12 o'clock, so everybody was, shooting their guns. And Brent came out the house with some type of revolver, like a 44 or 357, something like that, and he was shooting it. Other than that, that was it.
Were there ever any concerns at the cutoff about people stealing drugs?
Yeah.
And do you remember any incidents around that issue of people possibly stealing drugs?
I mean, a lot of drugs would come up missing, and guys didn't know. They would blame it on everybody, like, man, somebody out here stole my stuff. Like, somebody out here stole my stuff. But they never said anybody specific. And then if someone did get caught, then, the two people that did get caught, they got a beat down.
All right, well, let's go through that. The two people, who are those two people you're talking about?
One addict, well, they both were addicts, but one time it was this guy named Tone. He used to live on Perkins Street. He stole somebody's drugs out the tree in front of his house. And so, guys caught him and beat him up.
Well, who caught him?
Clyde caught him.
And who beat him up?
Me and Clyde.
And what about the second incident?
JR stole, another addict named Brenda told us that this other guy named JR stole Reg's drugs. So when she told us that,
Who did she tell?
I think she told Mo.
Object, move to strike it as speculative, Your Honor.
That's
What?
fine.
It's the state.
What were you told anything by Mo?
Nah, I just seen JaVille grab him. And when JaVille grabbed him, I'm like, what the hell going on? JaVille like, man, this nigga, he stole Red's stuff. So, we start beating him.
Who was that?
Me, JaVille, Lamar, and Mo.
Was anybody else there when you were beating him up?
Yeah, it was a lot of guys out there. Um, Scoob was out there. Mal was out there. Butch. It was a lot of guys out there, but everybody didn't do nothing.
No, it was you, Mo, Jayville, and a guy named Lamar.
Lamar, yeah.
Who's Lamar?
That's Mac's son.
Now, were there ever any times that you knew about arguments between dealers at the cutoff and dealers from other areas?
Yeah. Brent got into an argument. Well, I don't really know how the argument started, but I know it was between Brent and this guy named Big Tone.
Did you see the argument?
Yeah, I seen it.
Okay.
And they was arguing back and forth. Brent like, I beat you up, and Tone like, you don't want to fight me. And
What happened?
Mo wasn't around at the time, but he must have got a call. Somebody may have called him, and he came around. He stepped it.
Unless you can,
Absolutely, Your Honor. He's about to talk about Mo's relationship to the situation and what Mo did.
how do you know that?
I was out there.
Okay, please continue.
Mo stepped to him. He said, because Mo is the older guy, so if anything, they would tend to go to Mo. So he went to Mo, and Tone talked about it, and they squashed it. It was nothing. Just a little argument between two people, two sides saying different things, and then one person that could settle it with both people without having no trouble. Mo stepped in, said something to Tone. They stepped away and was talking, and then that was it.
And then Brent didn't have a problem with Tone after that?
Nah.
Now, did there come a time that you became aware that federal authorities were investigating the cutoff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember?
Don't remember when.
Well, no, sorry. Do you remember who was investigating?
I didn't know him at the time, but it was Ray and Randy.
How did you become aware of it?
I would always see him riding around, and then one day I was sitting on the cutoff. It was me and a few guys out there, and they came, and somebody said the feds. And when coming up in Philadelphia, when somebody say the feds, they normally just mean cops, police, any type. But when they came down, they got out, and then I seen their jackets. I said, oh. So I had weed, so I tried to dust the weed on but they was like, we ain't here for that. They talked to Bird. They asked me my name. They asked Mal his name. They talked to Bird, and then they left.
And did you see them out there after that?
Yeah, I started seeing them more and more often.
When they started making their appearance known to you, did you stop selling drugs at the cutoff?
No.
Did anybody of the group that sold at the cutoff?
No.
Did there come a point in time where you learned that you had sold to someone working with the feds?
Yeah.
Just for him, please, can I see photograph 398? Do you see that picture in front of you?
Yes.
Who do you recognize in that picture?
The customer and Craig.
Is that the customer that you knew to later learn to be working with the Fed?
Yes.
Can you please just light up the jury? You said Craig? That's the guy going up to the...
Yes.
And the customer, okay. Do you remember that customer specifically?
Yes.
What do you know? What do you remember about him?
He used to always come around, and Bird used to always serve him. Bird told me he served him 2 times for $300 in maybe like an hour's time. But before then, I was sitting in my car, and I seen Raymond and Randy pull him over. Well, I seen him get behind him. When he left out R Street, he turned down Highland. And when he left out, Raymond and Randy was behind him. And then like 2 cars behind them was me. And I seen him pull him over.
Well, if you knew that he had talked, did you assume that he had talked to Raymond and Randy?
I seen him when they stopped him. Okay. And when they was at his car talking to him, I seen him.
And nonetheless, did you sell to him after that?
Yes.
And were you charged with those sales?
Yes.
And were you charged, was beyond just sales, what were you charged in this case? Did you get charged federally by Raymond and Randy and the U.S. government?
Yes.
Okay, when did that, when did you find out about that?
May 21st, 2009.
What happened that day?
The indictment came down.
And were you arrested?
I was already in the prison, but yeah, I was taken from their custody and brought to federal custody.
And have you been in federal custody ever since?
Yes,
And then at some point, did you learn what you were charged with?
yes,
And did you decide to resolve the charges against you by pleading guilty?
yes.
Okay, I'd like to show just him Exhibit 306, please. Oh. Sorry, I have the wrong one. That's my fault. I'm sorry, give me a moment. Did you end up, when you pled guilty, did you plead guilty pursuant to an agreement with the government?
Yes,
And was it an agreement that you reviewed with your lawyer?
yes,
Sorry. I'm showing you what's been marked Exhibit 303. Do you recognize that document?
yes.
What is that?
My plea agreement.
And if we can just turn to page 12. Do you see your signature on that page?
Yes,
Who else's signature do you see?
my attorney and Miss Taylor.
And so, did you sign this after talking about it with your lawyer?
Yes,
Turning back to page 1, please. Does it say on page 1 what you pled guilty to?
yes,
Did you end up pleading guilty pursuant to? You said you.
yes, yes.
Okay, looking at paragraph 1, I'm just going to read it to you briefly. It says that you plead guilty to counts 1, 26, and 28 of the second superseding indictment.
Yes,
And count 1 is the conspiracy count,
yes,
okay, and that's conspiracy to distribute and possess with intent to distribute 5 kilograms or more of cocaine and 50 grams or more of cocaine-based crack.
yes,
And then counts 26 and 28 are distribution of cocaine-based crack within 1,000 feet of a playground.
yes,
Are those distribution counts the ones we just referred to as you selling to the undercover that was working with the feds?
yes,
And do you have any obligations under this agreement?
yes.
What are your obligations?
To testify truthfully and not say that not to lie on anybody, not to put nobody in places that they weren't in, or not to be, the best of my knowledge, testify truthfully.
And what happens if you don't tell the truth?
I don't get demotion from the government, and also my sentence says my guidelines is life.
All right, so we're going to go through that. You don't get a motion. If you do testify truthfully, are you hoping something will happen?
Yes,
What are you hoping will happen?
I'm hoping I get a motion that gets me a lighter sentence.
Who would the motion be from?
The government,
And who decides whether you get a lighter sentence?
my testimony,
Well, but is there any individual who ultimately determines your sentence?
the judge.
Okay. Is it, in fact, this judge?
Yes,
And you said that your guidelines are life.
right.
Let's turn to that. Does it say that in your plea agreement?
Yes,
Can we turn to page 8, paragraph 6, please? At the total maximum, just the middle of it. So is this what you're referring to? It says that your total maximum and mandatory minimum sentence, I'm sorry, can you publish that to the jury? You face a mandatory sentence of life imprisonment,
yes,
and then it mentions a fine, a special assessment, and forfeiture.
yes.
So when you pled guilty, what did you plead guilty to in terms of a sentence?
Life,
And you're hoping that the government will give you a motion that'll help you get below life.
yes.
And do you have any guarantees that the government will give you that motion?
No,
Even if the government gives you that motion, does the judge have to grant it?
no.
And even if the judge grants it, up to what sentence can the judge give you?
Life,
And you mentioned if you were to falsely put somebody in something, what would happen if you falsely put somebody, by testifying here today, in this case?
that's a breach of my agreement.
And then what would happen?